Good morning, everyone. My name is Sam Merrill. I'm joined alongside Brooks Watson today, and we're going to be talking about Appian 3D Plus, a whole new way to view your files. So, Eastman Kodak, a giant of the film and camera industry. For over 120 years, their brand was synonymous with what our core memories are made of. The slogan, "Make it a Kodak moment," was ubiquitous throughout America and the globe. But how could a massive brand like this, in only 100 years, go from giant to bankrupt? Well, the answer lies somewhere in this quote of text. You see, in 1975, a man, Kodak employee by the name of Steve Sazon, walked into a boardroom meeting. He carried with him a box and what he was calling a digital camera and set it on the boardroom table. He took a wire from that box, plugged it into a TV, and then pressed a button. Aperture opened up, and it took a photo of the businessmen that were sitting in that room. Kind of think chitty chitty bang bang, stuff was going on, gears were flying, and the processing that was taking place in that box was developing a camera digitally. It transmitted the data through that wire into the TV, and about a minute later, the boardmen in that room were seen on the TV, their image captured digitally on pixels on the TV. So he was like waiting for a reaction. The boardmen looked at each other and began pretty much laughing Steve out of the room. "Get that box out of here, Steve. We don't want you and your kooky inventions coming up and messing with our business." Steve was packing up the box, and as he was leaving, one of the guys was like, "Steve, how long until you think, your little, what are you calling that, digital camera photography? How long do we have till that might be mainstream, mass appeal?" Steve looked at everybody and he said, "I give it 20 years, 25, maybe 30. They said, "Okay, well, get it out of here, but when you go back down to the research lab in the basement down there in Rochester," he's like, "you can keep working on this, but it's really going to cut into our film sales. We can't market this right now, but continue your research." So Steve returned to the basement, and he actually patented the first digital camera. That was actually patented at Kodak. A lot of patents were that we all use today in our camera phone technology for digital photography, like the megapixel. And it's ironic that the big companies that became globally mainstream, they took digital photography mainstream, like your Sonys, your Nikons, your Samsung, they all were using those patents licensed from Kodak that Steve and the R&D teams at Eastman Kodak developed. So in 2007, this is when everything came to a head. So we're in Cupertino. Steve Jobs is on the main stage, and he gets to the portion of the iPhone demo where he's demoing the camera. And he goes into the Photos app, holds up the phone, and pinches to zoom on the photo. The crowd audibly gasped. I think a woman fainted in the back. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. But the Kodak executives, they believed what they were seeing because the time had come, their time was up. So it all came to a head in 2007, and about 5 years later, they filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Steve Sazon became a meme, and the rest, they say, is history. So parallels to this story, we see time and time again in markets and technologies and products. It's the innovation gap, right? And what reminds me of this story a lot right now, whether it's paralleling, is in immersive technologies, XR, VR, AR, these augmented reality headsets. And Gartner says the biggest barrier to wide adoption of immersive technologies is a lack of good user experience. It always comes down to the UX. So when you see something like this, like when in January, when this was on the market and was being sold, the hype was real, I thought. I was believing. I was like, oh my gosh, it's the coming out moment for headsets, for VR, XR, AR headsets. This is here to say, we had the social media influencers. There was a lot of hype around this. And I thought, wow, this might be the final moment. But I don't know, it took about 2 weeks and everyone's like, I don't know about that. And again, user experience, but there's two main things, two criteria that immersive technology has not yet met, and that's control and convenience. So like wearing the headset, it's still easier to control the digital landscape, your digital desktop with a phone or a laptop, right? Easier for the keyboard, doing all this, it's still not there yet. The tech's not there yet. And convenience, nobody finds it convenient wearing these headsets around public. But if Kodak taught us anything, and Steve, we know the moment is going to come. How long is this kind of tech, like the Oculus? I give it another 10, 15 years. There will be someone in some R&D lab that gets the defining technology that carries us into the mainstream. But we're not there yet. So what should we do in the meantime? Well, that's exactly what we're going to be talking about here today. It's how Appian enhances the 3D experience on our platform. We'll see 3 practical use cases from Brooks, who gave you a sneak peek this morning, the CTO keynote, and then we'll show you how we can get started today. So to do this, we got to go back in time a little bit. So design engineering teams. It used to be done on Vellum, right? This is an old architectural building, meant architects at their desks, doing drawings, blueprints, and at one point, the control and convenience came around where pixels on screens replaced lead on vellum. Now, the first ones to do that were these huge Unix workstations, the early digital transformation of these design engineering teams, like Autodesk. Now you see that price point there. Autodesk was still 2D. You couldn't design in 3D yet. And not to mention, you had to buy that whole entire workstation. So that was dedicated hardware, running dedicated software, and that price point's pretty low. Like they were going for 18 grand at a time back then. But slowly, as it was evolving, PTC came out with another one. And then what really took it to that next level, that mass appeal level, where the control and the convenience hit, was when SolidWorks released their software for the Windows operating system. That kind of changed everything because you could not only buy the software at a $5,000 price point and you owned it, it wasn't like a subscription. You owned it, but then everybody was running the personal desktop from their desktop, and it was available on the Windows operating system, which was a complete revolution in 3D design. So does anybody know who this man is in the crowd? Anyone? This is Jon Hirschtick. And so he was one of the original members of the MIT Blackjack team. You guys may have read Bringing Down the House or seen the movie 21. I think he's represented by Kevin Spacey, but I'm not really sure. But what Jon Hirschtick's story is after he took Vegas for a bunch of money in the 80s, he took $1 million of that money and he invented SolidWorks. So there's John right there at a SolidWorks convention in Vegas. These are huge, by the way. He's actually teaching other CAD engineers the ins and outs of taking Vegas for money. He's teaching them 21 right there. And so he stayed around SolidWorks for a while as CEO. Dassault actually ended up purchasing SolidWorks for a ton of money, made John very rich. And he stayed CEO there for a while, developing that technology. And it's the user experience of SolidWorks which really made it like a mainstream technology. But I think he got kind of bored in 2014 when he saw cloud technologies and the web being developed. And he thought of a new revolution, and that's cloud native CAD. I don't think the guy's ever satisfied because he's developed a whole new market, which is being able to design 3D designs on the web. And it's this company called Onshape. PTC just purchased them in 2019. But there's a couple problems with Onshape. It's great, it's revolutionary, and it's very performant. I've used it, it's a great product. But it's still seen as hobbyist. There's about 10 million CAE certified CAD designers globally. They have about 1 million subscribers, which is good. But what they've found is a lot of them are free tier, and no one's actually doing mission critical designs on it because it's just not there yet. But it's advancing. And there's another problem too. If you buy it, it is a subscription and you're within their SaaS product. You can't detach the viewer. You have to use it within Onshape interfaces, and you can't really do some of the things that a true low-code platform would be able to do for that viewing experience. So what if you could experience that 3D data in a whole different way? Well, with Appian 3D Plus, you can access your design files anywhere. Embed your models in any Appian low-code interface and access it on any device. It's secure. So you're not sending your files up to Onshape, which is not FedRAMP certified, or Autodesk 364, which is not FedRAMP. You can access these files on-prem. And then with the data fabric, you can take that proprietary model metadata that you have locked away in those files and connect it with the rest of your enterprise, your ERP, your PLM, your SCM. And we also support any file type. So the other vendors, they're gonna lock you into their proprietary files. Well, we can convert from any leading design software. So what does it look like? Well, again, access 3D in any interface, on any device, with any file, and all your data. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Brooks. He's going to take it from here.
So before I go into some of those use case demos, I just want to go over some common issues with product lifecycle management. Starting with cumbersome transitions between design, review, and production. With these web-based viewers that's recently AutoCAD and some other enterprises have come up with, you're stuck in their platform, like Sam said. There's no way to move that view into your own interfaces, which means that the person who's in charge of procurement is looking at the same thing that the person in charge of design review is. Now that might sound great, but what about all that other information, right? There's no connection between the model that someone is looking at and the rest of the information that they need to make their decisions. So the next issue we want to talk about here is supply chain complexities. There's a possibility when you generate a bill of materials that the bill of materials you send over to your manufacturer is actually different than the bill of materials that would have been associated with the actual product that was approved in design. And so this just leads to supply chain complexities, right? Even if they are the same, you have the issue of someone has to upload it to a file server, someone else has to go and get it, and this just leaves opportunities for mistakes to be made. It's very difficult to collaborate. Going back to that idea of you can only use the interface in one place, there's no way for someone in the design team to make notes on a model without either changing that base model for the designer via having a subscription to a very expensive software license, or just having a view and then having to ping them or email them notes, or take screenshots and use a PDF tool to make annotations. And then the fourth problem here that I want to talk about is something that is starting to become more of an issue, and that is that in the field, a lot of senior technicians are beginning to leave and retire without an appropriate number of new technicians taking up the mantle with the experience needed to perform good customer service. This is an issue, and it's exacerbated by the fact that the people in the field don't necessarily get to see a model, right? They have to be trained fully on something in person, and then that takes a lot of time and money, and you have to hope that once they get to the real world that they have memorized the tool well enough to quickly and correctly perform the service needed. So what I want to talk about is how Appian 3D Plus improves on this and solves some of these issues. It allows you to connect siloed system and processes, helps increase collaboration, reduces the risk and complexity associated with the transitions between the different stages of product lifecycle management. It also allows you to automate a lot of those manual processes now that you're fully integrated with the Appian platform. You can also streamline your documentation and really ramp up the time it takes to train someone for field service. And again, our viewer allows you to keep your files secure either on cloud or on premise. So the first use case we're going to look at here is about that universal file exchange. Just wanted to reiterate the sheer number of file formats that our viewer supports. Like Sam said, this means that you can go from whatever tool you're using directly into our viewer. You don't have to convert it to another file and then convert it again to our format. We support Autodesk, all the major design tools, as well as the typical standard engineering formats like STEP and IGES. All right, so now it's time to watch the first video. What we're going to see in this clip is we're going to go from our design tool to Appian, and then converting it to the file type necessary for our web-based viewer. You'll see how seamless and easy it is. So I'm going to click play here. We have the chair. So in our use case, we work for a furniture design company. All right, so we'll take this finally approved design, or rather the final design made by the designer, and we're going to use actually a command line utility. I know that this is high code and it's kind of a weird thing to see at an Appian presentation, but don't worry, it's very simple. It just basically can run on any OS, and what it does is actually calls the Appian Web API to save a new version of your file automatically. Right? This just reduces the amount of manual work you have to do. It then runs the conversion tool that we provide for the Appian 3D viewer to immediately convert your file into a viewable format. Now, we'll see here, we've refreshed the page and we've clicked on the new version, allowing you to view that chair within the Appian platform. Okay, so now the next use case I want to talk about is how this web viewer helps enable collaboration. So again, what you're going to see is an interface that we've built that allows for easy file versioning, the ability to annotate your model and leave notes, as well as an automatic bill of material generation, which is great for comparing your master bill of materials with the one that would be generated by the design file. Again, Appian 3D Plus makes it very simple to collaborate. You can rest assured that the model you're looking at is the exact same one the designer looks at and the exact same one the procurement team looks at. So we're going to start by actually loading up some annotations that have been made using this tool. Right? Pretty straightforward. No, this isn't that great, but some of the interesting tools is that we're actually able, or some of the interesting things about it is we're actually able to load in annotations across different views. So we're going to load in another set, and this ensures that the designer is able to see whatever notes you leave, right? Notes are left across different views. It makes it very easy to keep track of who was left what notes. And then finally, we're able to just click on the model created by Sam. It's easy. Leaving these annotations is very straightforward. You know, it's a pretty intuitive tool. You pull up the annotation marker, and our VP has approved it. So now it's time to send it to procurement. So in this clip, we're just going to show you, again, because it's Appian, sending your file to procurement is very straightforward. Super easy. You just build an Appian action, click submit, and now we can actually take a look at our XML comparison that allows us to see that, oh, okay, the design here is actually different than what we had in our bill of materials that we were going to send to the manufacturer. And this just helps prevent any issues from occurring and ensures reliability when it comes to the manufacturing stage. So we kind of want to reiterate some of the things that we talked about during the keynote, which is the idea that this viewer is fully integrated with the Appian Data Fabric. So that, again, brings back to the idea that you can make sure that when you're viewing this model, you can also see all the relevant data that you would want in order to make a decision. We're also going to talk about how it lends itself really nicely when paired, or to be paired with case management. And we're also going to talk, again, just kind of thematically about the idea of how easy it is to use this in any process. It's a very simple drag and drop tool. So right here, we are working on a case regarding a malfunctioning engine. Right, so we're going to click on a part. Let's just assume that this was where the technician found an issue. They're going to note it's a defective part using the case management tool, and they're going to hit next here after attaching some documentation. Right, so just like that, we've created a case. Now, we can review that case, and another great tool is the ability to make changes to the model visually without impacting your base file. So you don't have to worry about accidentally changing something when viewing your model.
Another cool part there was isolating the part.
I can just highlight that again. Right. You're able to isolate individual parts, and because this is Appian, we're not going to go too deep into the code. But the way this is set up is you can use any sort of Appian functions or record queries to determine what you want to do to the model. You can do things like change the color of given parts or isolate them as you see here. Now we want to talk about how this tool can be used to enhance the customer experience and increase product engagement by creating interactive service requests. So we're going to look at taking a legacy interface that involves allowing your customers to pick a product by looking at an image of it. Right? It's a static image, not necessarily a great thing to look at. It looks kind of clunky, and it's not the best customer experience. But because of this tool is an Appian component, updating, modernizing your customer service portal is super straightforward, right? So we'll just see here what that original form looked like. You have a still image. This is something that's pretty common, especially with complex machinery, where it's very difficult to have a model to show to somebody. But now all we have to do to update it is literally just drag our component onto the canvas. So for those of you who haven't seen Appian before, this is what our interface designer looks like. It's designed to be very approachable for people without any coding experience. You can configure the component very easily using just our no-code tools on the right-hand side there. So we've uploaded our document. We can even customize things like the background color to ensure a seamless branding consistency. So now that we've updated our interface, we're going to push our changes to our portal, our public-facing website. That is as simple as literally just opening your portal object and republishing it. Now, if you've already configured this interface, you don't even have to actually do that republish in action. It will do it for you automatically anytime a change is made. So now, there you go. Your interface has already been updated, and your customers are able to actually view and interact with the model itself. Just a much better, more pleasant, and interesting customer experience.
Finishing request.
Yeah, so again, we're just going to go back to that idea of this being a customer service request. It's very easy for your customers to now make service requests, and they can click on individual parts if they know where the issue lies, which just speeds up that process of the technician understanding what the problem is so that they can get it working for their customers more quickly. So we want to pull this back up for those of you who are interested in trying out this product. Scanning this QR code, you'll be brought to an interest form where you can sign up for the beta program.
Yeah, all right, so everybody. So that's what we have so far. We're going to go take questions now. So right here, open it up the floor. If anyone has any questions. You want to go back?
Yeah.
Wants to go back to the beta form.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, how's it going, man?
So I have a question about the annotations. How much complexity can you capture in the annotations? Would you be able to maybe supplement them with another source of data? Maybe there's like manufacturing instructions, or maybe there's like manual parts. And would you be able to import that into the Appian 3D viewer and maybe let an engineer take a look at the documentation for whatever part they're looking at?
The current version, it is limited to text, but that is something that we can add to it. In the next iteration, it's not that difficult for us to add additional input formats. So you could attach, say, like a document regarding a particular part.
Okay, sweet. Thank you.
So for this feature, what are the compute requirements for the infrastructure?
For the infrastructure? Well, we have a conversion process. It's basically a smart service right now. We run it on what instances of EC2 we run that on? Like some of the smaller instances?
Yeah, we've run it on small instances.
Yeah.
It's obviously a little bit slower, but
we're looking at making it a full part of the platform, so making more of like a microservice architecture on Stratus to handle that, so it can handle elastic load. But right now, the requirements are basic infrastructure of Appian or handling very large files. How big are some of the files that you've converted on?
We've done some that are around 200 or 300 megabytes. And the great thing about this converter is it uses a compression format, so your converted files are significantly smaller. They take up less space.
So it converts it down like 200, 300 meg to like,
Yeah, I think
maybe
I've
like,
seen it about a fifth on average of the original size.
it uses that compression to be able to display it in that WASM viewer. So that's a WebAssembly viewer. So that's like the cloud technology that we're able to run those models off of. And that's what gives it that very nice, intuitive user experience. Very quick and performs very well. Any other questions back here?
Is there a inherent file size ceiling to the Cadrons?
We haven't seen it yet. I imagine once you get past a gig, it could get maybe a little hairy, but we haven't come up across them yet. But that's why we're running this beta program, because we want to see, we want you to bring everything you have to it, and we can work directly with you to, no matter what your file size is, to get you the perfect experience with the product. Do you want to show anything else, IoT or anything?
Yeah, sure. So I know we showed on the keynote stage an Internet of Things or IoT demo where we actually streamed in events that changed the model. We can actually show you that to you live here. I have right here a Python script for, again, I know high code, but this is just to kind of simulate Internet of Things devices. It could be something like a thermostat, or it could be as complex as, say, a robotic arm on the floor of a factory. So this one is just going to send information about like the temperature, maybe the power level, as well as battery and things like that to our viewer. So I should click play here. And then we have this model here. In about 5 seconds, it should start changing colors, assuming that that script runs. Yep, so there we go. So we're showing you that it really can do that. That is fun, that is a capability of this tool. Setting that up is not that difficult. You can easily stream data into it.
And then as you know, there's going to be more enhancements made to the data fabric on the Appian platform. I can't give away pretty much anything right now, but just know that this is going to be a, you know, an out of the box capability of the data fabric sometime soon. So keep a lookout for that. But as of now, we have this component able to handle IoT from whatever kind of broker system you have.
And just to kind of get into that a little bit more, this real-time monitoring capabilities allows for some pretty cool processes and things that you can do with Appian. You can use this model to kick off other processes in Appian, allowing you to really stay on top of any issues that you're having, should you be using this tool to monitor anything in real time.
With that, oh, got a question back here.
Yeah, just a question about, do you support rendering styles, textures, or anything like that, or is it just flat color?
I believe that one of the chair models, if I can go back to, actually let's stop this, so slow down. One of the chair models here, as you can see, it has lighting on here. It is somewhat flat, but it does support material information. So that one of the great things about this, and I kind of showed it in the bill of materials generation, but I didn't get into it in detail, is that any I think it's a PIM or PMI that is attached to a model is maintained throughout the conversion. So any information that you'll have on that, materials or otherwise, will be maintained. I believe we haven't used too many models that have material data. We're basically just pulling models from GrabCAD, just a public site that anyone can upload models to. But we should have support for that. It will be maintained in the PMI, even if it's not necessarily displayed.
Okay. that looks like we're done for questions. Again, we're going to be in the community hub demoing this the rest of the day, so you can get your hands on it. We can upload any kind of file type you want from GrabCAD or anything like that, show you the conversion process, walk through some of the going from CAD viewer to case management studio, triggering tasks and things like that of thresholds hit from the IoT device. So come stop by. We'll be there all day. So thanks all for joining.